Hello and welcome to Creating the Life You Love, How to Live a Spiritual Life in a 3D Reality. I'm your host, Valeria Bruno, and this is the space where you will find the tools for your personal and spiritual development, so you can live a fulfilled life in the magnificence of your being. And this is also a space where we can openly talk about science, spirituality, and even go beyond. My welcome guest today is Dr. John Ryan. Hello, John. It's a real pleasure to have you here.
Hi, Valeria. It's my pleasure to be here and to be with your audience as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So before starting, I would like to introduce you to the audience. So I will read your bio.
Okay.
Dr. John Ryan is an associate professor of diagnostic imaging, board certified specialist medical doctor, and long-time student and practitioner of energy and consciousness-based medicine. He is the author of The Missing Pill, The Rise of Energy Healing and Conscious Bio-Spiritual Transformation, a book that represents a holistic primer designed to bring to the reader a panoramic understanding of the awakening power of spiritual consciousness and energy-based healing, and serves as a practical and personal tool to deeply integrate this new human potential. Dr. Ryan's work has led him to the mystical threshold of the quantum nature of DNA and its integral connection to the human spirit. His passion is to apply the potential of this awakening knowledge to support the human in healing, and this has culminated in its role as founder of Unity Field Healing, a new quantum healing process based on conscious activation of the DNA quantum field to support healing and personal evolution. Dr. Ryan loves to bring this esoteric information down to earth so anyone and everyone can access and benefit from the knowledge and experience available in these awakening times. So, John, before we start, because I would like to know exactly what is energy and consciousness-based medicine, but I would like for you to share to the audience, with the audience, your journey, your personal journey, because I would like to know if you had a shift from being a medical doctor into becoming a healer, or there were two paths that went simultaneously on your life.
Okay. It's a great question. And I love the way you present it, Valeria, because I think it's true for many of us in science.
Yeah. Yeah.
We undergo awakenings and you live parallel lives in some way, as you go through your own awakening journey, but they do start to merge with time. For me personally, my story goes back to around 1987. I was really at the end of my medical training. I was just finishing up medical school and ready to go into an internship and to start my more advanced training to go into practice. And so it was kind of the beginning of my career, and I was getting excited about that. But as the time was passing in my last year of medicine, I began to have these unusual experiences. And what would happen is I would go to bed at night and my body would start to vibrate, or I would have these energy pulses in my body, and my consciousness would pop out of my physical body. So I would have like a conscious out of body experience and begin to see energy and be able to move in consciousness or in spirit separate from the body. And I began to see energy fields around people, and have very strong intuitions and premonitions, if you will, about things that were happening, or if somebody I was speaking to was sick in some way, or things like that. And so this was really an unusual thing for me. I didn't really know what was happening. I wasn't really a spiritual seeker up to that point. I mean, I've always been a good person and a moral person, a fundamentally spiritual person, but never really thought of myself as a seeker. And so when this started to happen, I didn't really have any frame of reference to what I was living and nowhere to go to find the answers. So I knew what I was living was valid. I knew it was unusual. And I knew that I couldn't really talk to anybody about it because they wouldn't understand. They would think I was going crazy or having, symptoms of some kind of an illness or,
Yeah,
gosh knows what.
psychotic
But
episodes.
exactly. But I knew enough to know that wasn't exactly what was happening. And
Yeah.
it one morning I woke up and I had this really powerful intuition, and it was to go visit a bookstore that I knew existed that I had never been to in the city where I live. And so it was such a strong feeling that I couldn't resist it. So I found myself in the car driving to this bookstore. And when I went into the bookstore, I started looking around, and it was one of these big stores in an old kind of a mansion style house. And every room had different kinds of books. There was Eastern spirituality and energy based consciousness and healing books and things of this nature. But we're talking 1987. So there wasn't all kinds of this new age type information. It was just really beginning at that time. But there was enough there to give me a lot to consider. But as my eyes panned around the store, there was a book on one of the bookshelves that magnified. And it's like today when you run your mouse over the icon on your computer and the little icon gets big as you touch it. The book on the bookshelf doubled in size. And I thought it was my eyes were playing tricks. So I kind of did a double take and I looked again. And it did the same thing. And when I went over and took the book off the shelf, the book was The Spontaneous Awakening of Kundalini by Gopi Krishna. And I began to read the back cover and then some of the information in the book. And it was like I had been given a gift of revelation because it was really explaining so much of what I was living. Now, that was a term I didn't know. I didn't know about Kundalini energy or the chakras or the energy system or anything like that consciously. And so it really opened my eyes to a whole world of understanding that existed that I knew nothing about. But it launched me on a journey because now that I had been exposed to this, I began to look for more information. So it was kind of like a fork in the road, and spirit said, go this way. And so I followed the intuition and it led me down a path. And as I explored more and more deeply, I began to learn all kinds of things. And I began to do experiential things and workshops and listen to other people who've had similar experiences and begin to do practice in energy healing type modalities like Reiki and different kinds of things that are very commonplace. But at the same time as all this was happening over the years, I began to have vision experiences, so visionary type experiences where I would live almost in a dream state. I would be in a meditation, and in this space of really deep coherence in the meditation, I would be shown images or pictures or screens of information that I didn't understand when I was first being presented with them, but later was able to decode them, if you will, or interpret what was contained in the image. And I realized I was starting to be taught by spiritual memory or by spirit, through the form of these visionary experiences. So that's a little unusual for a scientist, of course.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, I was also going through my work. I was working in clinical practice. I worked as a family doctor. I continued specialty training in diagnostic imaging. And what's interesting is that in that aspect of medicine, it's the one part of medicine today that's already working in an energy consciousness. I didn't realize this at the time, but in retrospect, I saw that this was true. When we do imaging, we're using X-rays and ultrasounds and MRIs, and we're using these technologies through the form of impressing energy on the energy system and then reading the information that comes back from this energy play. And so it's where medicine is beginning to work in energy without realizing perhaps what it's doing, but it's the first field of medicine that really works within an energy construct.
Yeah.
And so that kind of unfolded in tangent to the spiritual work and the pursuits I was doing. But I've worked a lot with people over the years for healing. I've done a lot of workshops and those types of things. And then in more recent years, I began to formulate the information from the visions that I was given and began to teach people how to heal with the knowledge that I was being shown. And so they've occurred in parallel, but they're all about healing and bringing the human spirit
and
into
what I
place.
find really interesting in what you describe, you do not only talk about energy-based medicine, but also consciousness-based medicine. So it's a sort of upgrade of healing that you are providing. We will talk after about your unity field healing, but do you think that energy is more available to us now so we can integrate with our consciousness? It's not just an energy that we bring to our body.
Yeah. So the mystical thing about energy is that energy is not new. We've seen our body as a physical body for a long time, and science has approached it that way. So, you know, we look at the body very much as a structural thing. So, for example, if something is wrong, you do surgery to fix a problem. You take a medication in the body to adjust the biochemical reaction to help it perform in a better way. And we see outcomes as physical and tangible outcomes based on 3D experiences. And so we've kind of dealt with the body as a really structural thing. We don't give the credence to the emotional, mental, and spiritual aspect of what the human being is and how that implicates health and well-being very well in Western medicine. It's changing now, and there's a lot of things that are coming online that are changing the way medicine is seen, the way healing is seen, and the way everybody works in healing, physicians and non-physicians alike. But the body itself has always been energy. It's never been physical. Everything that is physical is based on atoms, and atoms are electronic particles. They're little tiny aspects of physics that exist within atomic structure, and the atoms build up to make compounds, things like carbon and hydrogen and oxygen and all these things. And they work together in relationships that can form certain compounds that make the building blocks of what's used to build anything in the physical world, our bodies included. So when you go into the physical aspect, into the energy aspect, down to the atomic structure of physical things, you realize everything is energy. And Einstein was really the first person, I think, to bring this into a perceptible form of consciousness. You know, E equals mc squared. So energy is mass times the velocity of light. If we increase the energy within a substrate, it becomes more energy. If we decrease the energy, it becomes more solid, more visible, more tangible. And so when you grasp that, you realize everything exists as energy. But you can keep going with that theorem. You realize emotions are energy, our thoughts are energy, everything about us is energy. And energy molds experience. And I think this became both harder and easier to understand with the advent of quantum physics. Because when we go into the quantum world, what we're really doing is going inside the atom. We're going interdimensional, if you will, to the atom. And where we're going is into the dimensions that exist that are not seen or perceptible in the 3D or tangible world. But what quantum physics has begun to show is that where we focus attention, where we put our attention on things, it influences the way matter behaves. So things are more in possibility, fields of possibility, until we focus our attention on them, and then we turn them into observable experiences. And so, you know, it's quantum physics that's saying things like our thoughts affect our reality, or, you know, the way you think influences the life you create, and so on and so forth. And I think part of the mystery of healing is we don't sometimes understand why we're creating certain things. You know, we may have issues in our life or psychological issues or relational issues and things, but we don't understand where they're coming from, why we're creating them, if you will. So we're not seeing the print, the blueprint of energy that's creating that outcome, or why we're tending to manifest that in the world. And so there's a natural flow from physical to energy. But when you enter into the quantum conversation, you also realize it's not just energy, it's consciousness applied to energy. And so as spiritual beings or sovereign beings, each one of us is a soul. And you can't really go into the world of more esoteric healing without becoming a little spiritual in your orientation, because you have to realize you're a soul. Like, you're not just a human being with a functioning brain. You're a soul animating the brain. You're a soul animating the body. And so the consciousness from which you originate is transpersonal to your human experience. It's outside of your simple incarnation. This is just like one experience of your soul, if you will. And your soul can have many of them. And we call that reincarnation, of course, or, alternate lifetimes or past lifetimes and things like that. So, but the soul is really the animating force of consciousness. And through the connection with our soul and the power that's contained in our soul, we can bring healing down into the physical world. That's mysterious or esoteric or whatever we want to call it. But it's a powerful access to be able to heal and understand transformation that doesn't exist until you step into that new realm of understanding. And science isn't quite there yet, because even though the world of quantum physics is expanding daily, it's not at a point where we see quantum energies. The only people who've seen quantum energies are people who've seen it with their third sight or with their third eye, their own energy vision. And that's not something most people can do. And so if you don't have that experience, it might be hard to believe someone else can do it. You think it's maybe they must be making it up or whatever. But there really are people who can see energy things. And but with it, there's a whole faculty of senses that begin to awaken, all what we call the clair senses, clairaudience, clairvoyance, claircognizance, these kinds of things. There's skills and energy abilities, perceptual abilities that awaken as the soul expands in the body. And so lots of people are having these kinds of tangible experiences today, but not everybody is yet. And science isn't at a place where it can see them or measure them or observe them. So therefore it has to take a stance that it's not real, because what else can it do? It doesn't see it or know it. So it has to behave based on the truth of what it is observing. But we're starting to be able to observe outcomes. So you can see that, for example, when a community focuses in meditation on coherence, we can see the rates of violence in the city may decrease, for example. So you don't see the quantum field generated by the meditative exercise, but you can see the outcome in the physical world in response to the creation of that energy field. And so it's just a nice example, I think, to help us understand how consciousness can affect behavior and experience in what we call reality, or 3D reality, if you will.
Yeah, I was thinking when I was reading your bio that you talk about ascension time. We are talking a lot about ascension in our spiritual communities. Do you think that healing can help to ascend?
Wow, that's a great question. So I'm going to frame it in a little bit of a different orientation. I think healing is an outcome of ascending.
Okay.
I think as a person, so let's go back for a minute and talk a little bit about ascension. So we're on the we're on the same page, because that means so many different things to so many different people. But to me, ascension means the planet has arrived at a place where it's beginning to expand in consciousness and undergo an energetic transformation that is preparing it to step into a new kind of human civilization. And so those are pretty big words when you stop and realize what you're saying. You're saying fundamentally the earth is changing in such a way that human nature and human civilization is going to change because of those changes. And so you can't grasp something that big, I think, unless you understand a little bit of the bigger picture. And so you have to take a step back from the whole concept of ascension and ask, what's happening and why now? So when you understand cosmology and the galactic structure and the universal structure, you can see that our solar system is a structure in its own right. It's kind of an entity that sits with the sun in the middle and the planets circulating around it, but it's part of a galaxy, which is part of a greater universal body. And the movement of these structures within a galactic space has an order to it. And there's a timing when certain things happen in that big picture. And so ancient systems of spirituality, like the Hindu system of spirituality, have long talked about yugas, these galactic cycles of time through which certain kinds of overlighting patterns of consciousness are the principal consciousness for that period of time. And we look at the year 2012 in our current time cycle, and it was recognized as one of these apex moments in time. So the Mayans, for example, and the Mayan timekeepers talked about it as the end of a cycle of time. And so we're not talking the end of a week or the end of a month. We're talking the end of a 26,000 year flow of energy. And so in that period of 26,000 years, that's the length of time it takes for the Earth to go through what's referred to as a precession of equinoxes. And let's understand that the Earth is on a wobble, so that its north axis points towards the center of the galaxy, but then it will shift a little bit to above and a little bit below, and it goes through one complete cycle over a 26,000 year time frame. And as it's doing that, the orientation of the constellations will change in reference to the North Pole. So we will go through what we call periods of a certain pattern of a dominant constellation. So the age of Aquarius, for example, is one of these smaller time cycles within this bigger time cycle. And every once in a while, the Earth gets at a place where, and the solar system is at a place where the alignment is back to the central core of the galaxy. And you can think of this as an alpha and an omega point. It's the ending of something and the beginning of something. It's the end of a cycle and the start of a cycle. And so this time on the Earth is one of these moments. And what the Mayans who measured this and understood these things talked about was the fact that the Earth, what this means in a human experiential sense is that it's the end of a kind of civilization and the beginning of a new kind of a civilization. And so the old civilization is based a lot on the duality, the consciousness of light and dark, good and evil, learning how to align your own moral choices with light versus dark. As we go into the next phase of consciousness, it's based on unity and understanding everything is a holism. So the way I treat you is the way I treat myself. I am part of a human experience. I'm not an isolated being. I live in the field of humanity as an individual experience of that. And I'm part of nature, and I'm part of the solar system, and I'm part of a greater galactic family if I keep going bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah. And so people talk about oneness, the concept of oneness. And so we're going into a time frame where this inherent unity is understood, as well as the inherent spiritual nature of all of reality. And so as we go into this new time cycle, you can imagine how that's going to change human perception. So along the way, there have been spiritual avatars who've come, like Christ-like beings and Buddhas and various saints and sages along the way. And they've taught the principles of the energy that will be the new time. So, for example, if you look at the Christic teachings, what Jesus said was a way of being in a quantum space where you understand unity. So he talked about the brotherhood of man. He talked about the way, what you do to the least of my brothers, you do unto me. If someone insults you, turn the cheek and give them the other cheek. Have another opportunity rather than act in vengeance or hatred or retaliation. And so these are the utterings of someone who is profoundly wise and inherently plugged in to a new consciousness. And so you can kind of see how humanity was slowly being prepared for the time to come. And so Spirit, if you will, sent teachers along the way to help us get ready for this transition in this space. So the ascension is a point where the whole earth is being prepared to move into that new frame of consciousness. Now, when you look at the world, you'd say, you got to be kidding. Like you see the news and you think, surely that can't be true, because everything right now is so chaotic. And you can just see the metamorphosis, but you don't necessarily see what's pushing it. When you understand energy, you realize consciousness changes form. So if form is breaking down and getting chaotic and crazy, it's because something new is being born, pushing it into that experience. And so we're actually going through a time of birthing, but it feels like a time of destruction. Yes. And so the two are kind of simultaneously happening, because on a collective and an individual level, on a family level, on a societal level, on a planetary level, we're going to go into a place where we understand life fundamentally differently. It'll be the sounding tone, if you will, or the primary tone of the new ascended state. And so that gets referred to as an ascension status or an ascended planet. And so that's how I understand ascension. When your energy, as a human being, as you undergo this process, it affects you personally as well as something that's happening planetarily. And so the way we experience the ascension is through what I refer to as the quantum DNA. And so there's an energy communication between our soul and our physical presence on the earth, if you will. And there's a field of energy between those two spaces called your quantum DNA field. And so the transformation that we live is through that field. As our own quantum energy is changing, it enhances our health, it enhances our well-being. And so a lot of things that exist as states of illness and those kinds of things are transformed through the ascension, because the energy, if you really participate in the ascension and you're moving into the space of a higher vibrational reality, the more you're postured in that frame of mind and being, the less things can exist in that space that would be illness producing. So
Yes.
a lot of the things that we would see as sickness would disappear in that higher vibrational space. So that's very metaphysical, but that is the truth. And that's how I understand it. So I think it's a long answer to your question, but it gets us to the answer.
I was wondering, all of us on the planet now could ascend. So it's, do we have a free choice? It's I don't know how to say it exactly. It's a matter of raising vibration that is helping us, or is it can be just a free choice. I'm not interested in it. I just do not care, because I live in a family which is not as spiritual as I am. And it's not that they do not care, because they listen to me, they want to know what I'm doing, but they are not really in it. So I was wondering, are we all ready to ascend, planetary ready, as Gaia is bringing us so much energy, or just some of us? I don't think it's just some of us. Maybe if, as Cryon calls us old souls, we can be more receptive, but do you feel that the more of us who are raising vibration are doing it also for the rest of the humans?
Yeah, I think it's multifaceted, the way, Valeria, the way I understand it. So there are people who are more conscious of what's happening. You can call them the forerunners, or the first people who are aware of it. So this is the old soul contingent that you mentioned Cryon refers to, and other spiritual teachers have alluded to. And so the people now who are having experiences and remembering information and aligning with the transformation are, for the most part, old souls. And they're being stirred awake because they're being positioned to help move the planet forward through the transition. Because what's happening is, underneath that, the planet is changing. So the energy on the planet is rising, and it's creating a lot of the transformations that we see on the planet. And so people are going through lots of experiences that are very personal, things that can produce fear and uncertainty and loss of reality structures, or changing in relationships, and all kinds of things that are part of transformation. And so people are going through their own personal experiences, and it's scary if you don't have someone who sees the bigger picture sometimes and can help you navigate through it. So I think a lot of people in the old soul community, if you will, are being postured just to help people move more gracefully through the transition, and to not be afraid of what's happening, and to move with more grace. That happening, people can resist. And so it's a free will environment. So people can say, oh, that's all crazy talk, and I don't want anything to do with that, and you're all a bunch of lunatics and whatever. And you honor that. Like, from the place of knowing and understanding, you're not insulted by that. You just kind of understand that's where the person is in consciousness at this moment. So you just bless it and let it be what it is. You're not intimidated by that. But eventually things tend to happen. Like, for example, I was explaining in my own life, I wasn't really going around looking for ascension information. I was minding my own business, and all of a sudden things started happening to me that pushed me to ask questions and to begin to understand. And when I look back at my own life, I can see how I was taken under the wing of spirit. And I was walked through very specific experiences. It wasn't just I was living these random experiences, they were by design. They had a pattern and a purpose to them because they were very important for my future. And so, for example, when I started seeing energy, I didn't know why I was seeing that, but it made me realize that there is a truth to this concept of energy and having an energy body and those kinds of things. So you can see how that experience prompted me as a physician, as a healer, to open my mind to something that previously it was closed to. And so when we open ourselves even a little bit, magical things start to happen. But that's what you're talking about. It's the intentionality or giving consent.
Yes.
You say, I don't know what this is all about, but I'm open to learning. And then poof, life will help you. And I think what will happen is there'll be people who live their life, they don't really open and understand. They'll pass, when the time comes for them to leave the planet. But when they come back the next time, they're going to be being born in a field of energy that's set for the new. And so when we were born, that's not the case. The earth has gone through a transformation since the day we were born and where we are today. Yeah. So when we were born, life was very different. The energy of the planet was very different. And we've gone through this transition day by day with the planet. There'll be people who leave the planet, but when they come back, they're not coming to a planet where the energy was like it used to be in 1960 or 50 or 40 or 20 or whatever. They're going to be born into a planet of 2020 or 2030. And so when the soul comes in for the next incarnation, they're going to be wired up for what's new. And the way we see that in real terms, in really observable terms today, is in the children. So yes. if you have any exposure to kids, if you have your own grandkids or kids, or you teach or anything, you see how fundamentally children have changed. It's almost like they're a new species compared to children of, say, 1970 or 1960. They have an autonomy, they have a sense of worth, they question things, they have an integrity that's built in them. They are not afraid to challenge authority. They're not afraid to call something silly when it's silly. There's a certain presence in them that's disturbing a little bit to systems and to life. But if you look at it through a different lens, you realize there's an alchemy, a magic that's happening. And I think it's just a good testament to understand how you change. So some people will change in the future. Some people will change in the present. So people will change, but there'll be a stream of change. And eventually it will touch everybody and we'll all move forward into what you would call an ascended civilization, a much higher consciousness civilization.
Yeah. So how did this unity field healing came to you?
So what happened for me was I began, as I mentioned earlier, I started having meditative visions. And so if people have done shamanic work, where you're drumming and you go into that altered state and you begin to see things, or if you just have visions or dream state visions, you can relate to what I'm saying. But for someone who's never had a visionary kind of an experience, it's like a dream. Like you're seeing something clearly in your mind that is different than the reality that you're in. And so in these experiences for me, I'd be in meditation and I'd usually be in really powerful places on the planet when some of the more important visions happen for me. And so, what we call sacred sites, or, places that are known for their spiritual power. And I would be shown a series of things that would be information that didn't mean a whole lot by seeing it, but eventually I had to decode the information, and then it turned into a teaching of information. So the unity field healing was derived from a series of visionary kinds of experiences over the course of about 12 years. And so the very first one, I was in a meditation and I was shown this experience where it was like a filament of light came down in the meditation, and it was like it plugged into the top of my head and it began to vibrate. And as it vibrated, it popped open into a helix, like a DNA strand. And my whole body began to vibrate as this happened. This was like maybe in 2000 or 2001 as a year. And so I didn't know what that was, but I could recognize it was kind of like a DNA strand. And, there were bits and pieces of information that were obvious, and I just recorded it. I kept a little journal of weird things like that and kept them in in records, so I would remember them if I needed to in the future. And then in around 2010, 2011, 2012, I began to have a series of really powerful visions. One, it was kind of like one a year. And one of them was shown at the experience of what I call today the mechanics of incarnation. And in this vision, what I was shown was what happens when a soul is going to be born. And so what we do is we, in spirit, come to the earth in a form of consciousness or energy, and we feel out the earth to decide where we're going to live in that lifetime. So we might decide the family, our parents, the country we're going to live in, these kinds of things. So it's almost like a fact-finding mission. You go down, you read the energy, and what you're trying to interpret is the experience that will most support the purpose that your soul is going to be born. And so as humans, we have a frame of reference about what's the ideal life and what's a good reality and all that kind of stuff. But our souls see things quite differently. It's not the soul, to the soul, it doesn't matter if you have a big house and you're famous and you have success in a worldly way. What matters is that you evolve in light. And so your soul will incarnate with the choice of some experiences that as a human, we wouldn't even understand. So for example, you see healers are often born into families with a lot of problems or alcoholism or diseases and things like that. And they, they're the lighthouse, if you will. They're kind of born into that reality and they begin to restructure things. And so the soul will choose the environment for which it's destined to maximize the potential to be successful in its purpose for incarnating. And so what happens then is we go back to this place. And what I was shown in the vision is it's like a courtyard. And in the courtyard, there's doors around. And it's kind of like in Europe, you have these beautiful hotels with central courtyards. All the doors face in, and there might be a garden or a fountain or, something inside. And it was an environment like that. And I was told, I knew that if I went through a doorway, if I kind of in my intention went and opened a door and went into it, I would have gone into what I would frame as a lifetime. It would be like walking into an incarnation. But I was told to stand still. And so I stayed there. And what happened was this little structure descended, and it was like a double pyramid, a pyramid and an upside down pyramid, or an octahedron shaped like a double triangle. And in it, energy started flowing out of all the doorways. And there was a little bit from each space, and it was souping up. It was spinning into this little octahedron and taking form. There was a bunch of energy and information being coded, if you will, into that form of geometry. And then what happened was it stopped. And it was like all the information that needed to be there for you to bring with you in your incarnation was coded in that little geometry. And then it shot through hyperspace, like on Star Trek, when you fly through the stars. And it landed in a big quartz crystal, and then it merged with a developing fetus. And what I understood is this was a really bizarre vision because there were so many elements to it. I sat with it for a long time before I understood what it really meant. But what I was being shown was how the soul puts together a soup of information that's not the wholeness of who you are. It's a very limited subset of information that's pertinent for you to have with you when you're born. So imagine if you've lived a 1,000 lifetimes and you've been a man and a woman and a mother and a father and a priest and a healer and a thief and all kinds of other things in all the various incarnations. You're going to bring with you what's pertinent to help you on that journey, only specifically on that journey. So imagine you're going to go and you're going to be a doctor or a nurse, and you're going to have a family, and you'll be a mother, you're going to be a healer. You might bring with you elements of memory and energy that will help you do those things well, as an example. Or you might bring with you some karma, like if you want to neutralize karma from another lifetime, you might bring that energy with you and manifest that. And so what I was shown then is that all of this information that was coded in the courtyard is contained in a big molecule that looks like a DNA molecule, but it's massive in scope, like cosmic. And in it is the information of all the lifetimes stored in there. And then I was shown that as we go through the ascension, when we were born, we were given a limited aspect of energy. But as we go through the ascension, the gateway, if you will, or the doorway between the life we're in and all the rest of us is opening. And so there's an exposure to energy and information from our soul level of being that we didn't have before the ascension, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, and that's why people in their life are living these crazy changes. You know, you're going along, and here you are. Like for me, I was becoming a doctor and doing the thing, minding my own business, very happy. And then poof, all of this stuff started to happen. And I started to have conscious memories of other lifetimes and other experiences and all this kind of stuff. So in a very tangible way, I lived this opening. I remember the point in my life where that kind of happened. And so it's hard to integrate that at first. It's disorienting because as a human, what you realize is things you liked, you may not like anymore. Things you felt aligned with don't seem to match anymore. You may be in a relationship and it doesn't seem to work anymore. You're doing a job and it's not fulfilling anymore. And so that's how most people tend to notice they've gone through a change. It's very down to earth, if you will. But it's just a testament to the fact that things are changing in energy and consciousness. And so, but the bigger purpose of that is to open us up to our multidimensionality, because within our soul's framework, we have many incarnations. And anything we need to do in this lifetime, we have things to help us within our own soul. So for example, if we're trying to heal our physical body, we have within our Akashic memory, the memory of a perfectly healed physical form. If we are trying to write a book, we may have within us the memory of being an author or writing or being a scribe or doing things that are related to writing in other incarnations. In my experience, almost everybody who's waking up today has some kind of a healing attunement. They were all healers in other lifetimes. Now, maybe it's just the people I tend to meet, but you know, it's the truth. They all have, many of them have very conscious memories of being healers and doing other things in other lifetimes, or being in Egypt in the temples, or being in Lemuria in the temples.
Yeah, or shamans.
And
Yeah.
shamans, yeah. So what I was told by Kryon is these visions and the memories I'm having come from my experience when I was born in Lemuria. And I worked in the Temple of Rejuvenation. And what he said is, I'm remembering is the knowledge that was there to allow us to heal in the way we did in the Temple of Rejuvenation.
Yeah.
So he said, you're remembering information in your Akash. And that makes sense, because then, I can see I'm just accessing things that are there. It's information in the library. It's information in the Akashic field. And so that's starting to come into form. And then I was introduced to a light template in another vision that worked within this DNA field. And this template it's like a double figure of 8, kind of it's a circle with circles and then smaller circles inside. So it looks like a template that makes what looks like a DNA molecule inside a bunch of spheres or circles. And I was shown this pattern and told that it's a pattern of quantum light and information that has the ability to work in the quantum field to help restructure the energy to help us move through this integration. Because the ascension in the end is, when we think of ascension, we might think in biblical terms, Elijah and Elisha, like these chariots of light and energy, and they lift off the planet and they go into space. But ascension in modern terms is not a going up, it's a bringing down. And so we're bringing down energy and information, and we're anchoring it into our physical form. And so this pattern was a pattern that works in the field to help people do that. And then it slowly turned into a series of sessions. And then the sessions were done originally as audio sessions that you listen to and you can attune to the session. And then in 2017, I was instructed to begin to initiate practitioners to actually do the work.
So it's something you can learn to do.
Absolutely, yeah. So, and then just this year, because of COVID, the trainings went online. So people are now doing the training in a virtual format, which is really amazing. And so I've done it twice so far, and the experiences have been really incredible. So
this is a new kind of healing if it consciously activate the DNA quantum field. It's something really, really new. And for what I know about you, as I do all the transmissions that you propose, you have, I don't know how to call them, helpers, guides, but you receive some information from the galactics.
Yes.
Can you share it?
Sure, I can. Yeah. So the group of light beings so I'll explain a little bit how this happened first.
Yeah.
So I was teaching the work of unity field healing. I had been doing sessions for quite a number of years and trained practitioners. Like there's now about 150 or more practitioners on the planet. So I've been doing initiations to have practitioners in the work. And so in March of 2019, I had another one of these visionary moments where a group of light beings came into my field of vision. And they came as a bubble of light. They kind of descended like a big field of light, and then they irradiated or arranged themselves so that I could see it was an array of beings. They looked kind of like a choir, they were all standing up, but they were made of energy. They didn't have facial features or structure like a human body, but their shape was humanoid. But they were all made of light, and it was a beautiful blue white light, it's an unnatural light. It's a iridescent kind of a light, or a starlight, or quantum light. And they told me that their identity is the Sirian Blue White Collective, and that they're a group of light beings from an ascended civilization that's interwoven with the evolution of the earth. And we can think of them kind of as grandparents, if you will, in terms of spiritual parents. They're like a civilization that has matured beyond our level of understanding at this point. And they have been part of Earth's history since the beginning, and even before the beginning. And they have been consciously working on the earth, like in Egypt, a lot of the temples, Sekhmet, the temples of Sekhmet, the priesthood of Sekhmet, the priestesses of Sekhmet, everybody who worked in that whole field of consciousness, and the Hathors are all related to a time when the Sirians had a very conscious influence on the earth, or they were commingling in consciousness with the earth, if you will. But they've always been there, even when we're not aware. And so even in the time of Lemuria and other places where they're not so consciously identified as being part of that civilization. But they have been there, and that they are actually the light beings behind these teachings and behind the work of unity field healing. Yeah. So it helped me understand a lot of things, because when I started doing the audio sessions at first and people would listen to the audios, I was always blown away how powerful people would have experiences doing these audios. And I thought, we can all go into meditation and have experiences, but there was something supernatural kind of happening. And I didn't know why, but people would see lights, they would see energy. Sometimes they would see light beings, they would have energy things happening in their body, they would have awarenesses, they'd remember lifetimes, they would heal things. All kinds of really interesting things were happening. So I knew something was up, but I just thought, it's the force of spirit. It's like God working with us, or the creator working with us to help people heal and ascend. But it was interesting to make connection with an identity or a group of beings that told me they've been there the whole time, and that they're there when we do the initiations. When people are becoming practitioners, there are attunements done before each level. And so in that initiation, the Sirians come and work individually with that person to help calibrate their light field, their energy field, to be able to carry the energy, if you will, or support the work. And when people are doing the sessions, the new practitioners, when they are doing sessions on people, they're there as well. And so it's amazing how people see them. Like when people are having sessions and doing practice sessions with their families and stuff, or their clients, people will say, who is that blue light being? Or who is that person standing at my head? Or, they'll people who don't even know that they're part of the story will feel them and see them. So there's a beautiful validation of that. That's not important, but it's nice to have things validated, to have a sense of support. Yeah. And so they work with the unity field healing process. But they also asked me in August of 2019 during the Lions Gate, which is August 8th, the 888 window each year. And it's when Sirius is really the closest to the planet. It's when the worlds come together. I think of Sirius kind of as the sun behind our sun. So you know how on Earth we receive energy from the sun? Our sun receives energy from many places in the galaxy, but Sirius is kind of like a sun behind our sun. It's like a sun that shines on our sun, which then shines on us. So it's kind of like a sun behind the sun, if you will. That's the way I explain it. And so a lot of high level wisdom, there's temples of healing, temples of ascension, temples of all kinds of order that are part of the Sirian field of consciousness. So it's an overlighting force, if you will, on our Earth. And so a lot of the wisdom teachings and things that we have been exposed to, I believe, are sourced in that. And that's what many, many people believe who explore esoteric teachings and have had personal experiences. So they asked me in August to begin a series of transmissions. And so I did this kind of naively, not really knowing what I was doing, but I was just, if you build it, they will come.
Your mic went off.
There, are we back?
Okay, perfect.
Good, yeah, I just lost sound. So I didn't quite know what I was going to do, but I was told the name of the first 3 events. And so the first one was called the inaugural event, and then Diamond Light Code Activation 1 and Diamond Light Code Activation 2. And so I set up the first 3 events, and I met with people in person at the time, because this was before COVID. And we met in a meditation group in a gathering, and there was a little lecture I prepared kind of explaining the process and the phenomenon. And then we went into this meditation, and the meditation became an energy transmission. And what happens is the Sirians come to join us in these meditations. And so there's a credible, coherent quantum field of energy that's created by the group. And many, many different things happen. Sometimes the transmissions are around the integration of a piece of the ascension puzzle. And sometimes they're acts of service that help the planet move into the field of ascension. So some different things are happening while we do them. Usually it's a bit of both. And then the transmissions were recorded at the beginning, but not the teachings that I gave beforehand. And with COVID, I switched everything to do it in an online format. And it was really magical because it actually opened it up to the international community. And so now I have people from all over the world who join in these monthly transmissions. And so it's like a 3-hour evening online.
Yes, and also having the teaching before, it's the mind, it's happy too.
Yeah, it satisfies. And it puts a lot of things in perspective. And then the transmission is the last hour. But what I have done is people register. It's like an event. People pay a little bit to join and be online. But all of the transmissions, I believe, are important to make publicly available. So the last hour of each event, I make available for free. And so if people go to the website under the Sirian section, you can see all of the prior transmissions. All the first 13 have now been done, and they're all there. So in the end of that cycle of 12, we went through an experience where we were met by the Hathors. We went through an integration of the Merkaba field of light. We attuned to the Christ consciousness grid. We did a soul star integration. Yes. And then the Earth Mother, Star Mother union, conceiving the divine, was the last of the series of 12. And what I understand in retrospect is it's 12 pieces of the ascension process. So they're things that every human being goes through, not necessarily in sequence, but in the process of integrating ascension energies. And that brought the end of the first cycle. And so in August of this year, they asked me to continue the transmissions. And the next cycle are called the Unity Teachings, Embodying Higher Light. And so we just did the first one of these, which was called Unity with Source. And then we were moving into unity with soul and unity with self. So you can kind of see there's a bringing down of the energy through the first 3 transmissions.
So do you suggest to do from the first to the last, or you can just jump in these new ones?
I would jump into the new ones. If people are drawn to them, what I would say is it's nice to attend one online. because you get a feeling of the fullness of the whole experience. You see the teaching that goes along with it, and you experience the transmission at the end. And then if the time zone doesn't work, because it's in a quantum space,
Yeah,
you can do
doesn't
it
work
later.
in
Yeah.
Italy, no, for sure.
Exactly. So people will sometimes register, but they'll do the replay the following
Yeah,
day. So they'll tune in, and that works really well. People have this exact same experience as someone attending it live. And then I take that and make more edited videos, and then I send out links to the attendees for both of the videos. And now I've started recording the actual teachings as well since February. So the first 5, the teaching part is missing, but now I've recorded that too. So eventually I can make it as a collective body and people can
yeah,
go back and see lectures too. So yeah, so that's what those are all about, and they're profound. They're so powerful, and the last one was so different than from anything I've ever experienced. There's many things. What happens in the transmissions as we go into the meditation, I see things energetically, and I'm like a reporter. I'm kind of saying, this is what's happening, this is what's happening, this is what's happening. And so whether you see it or not is not important. It's just to kind of keep everybody in tune with the process of what's happening energetically. And then after that, we'll develop this coherent space, and people are receiving individually things that are very unique and tailored, purposeful to them in their own individual journey. And but in the last transmission, the light that came into this process was like something I had never seen. It was this white light. It was like this structure that brought us right back to the center of the galaxy, that was made of this beautiful iridescent white silver star. But it was actually physically hard to hold it in my body.
okay.
And so I have a friend who said, "Oh, your voice was quavering in that last transmission." And I'm thinking, hey, you're very perceptive, but it was because I was feeling like I was holding on in trying to describe the energy. So, but people can start them anywhere. And I was told by the Sirians that they will adjust to wherever you're at and whatever you've done. So if you're doing something that's far down the line, you can start there. But it's helpful to go back and do the other transmissions.
Yeah.
So you can kind of step in anywhere, but it's still a value to go back and do the prior transmissions. You'll receive different things along the way. And people say, do they have to be done in order? And my usual response is follow your intuition. It may not be you have to do them in the sequence in which they presented. So go to the ones you're drawn to, and then eventually you'll probably complete all of them once you kind of get into them. But do them in an order that is following the guidance of your own intuition and your own soul. Yeah.
So could we provide an experience to the audience of this transmission?
I'd love to. I'd love to. All right.
Thank you.
So as we go into the space of the transmission, Valeria, I'm being told by the Sirians that this is a meditation or a transmission of bridging. And we can think of that as the experience of linking the soul and the body, really developing the energy, the channel of communication, the connection between the soul, the human mind, and the soul mind, the greater consciousness that we all emerge from. So it'll be a very individual experience, and yet a common experience. So let's just go together now into a meditation. We've been talking and triggering lots of ideas. The mind is busy. But now we can relax and just kind of let ourselves go into the meditation. Just feel your body kind of letting go of any tension. Let it relax as you breathe in and breathe out. You feel your body relaxing more and more deeply. And you breathe your way down into your heart center. It's as if you're breathing into your heart. And then as you exhale, you let go of any tension, You feel like your body is just melting into the experience, into the field of energy that we're developing and building together. And we're creating together a field of coherent light. And in the space of quantum reality, we're not in different places. We are together in one space. And what I'm being shown is a group of human beings that are standing in a circle around what looks like a mountain. And everybody is holding hands energetically. It's like we're forming a ring, a continuous ring. It's part of one group of human beings, all working together and being present in the same place. And as we look at the mountain in the center of our meditation, when we look up, we can see it's a snow-capped mountain, but it's also a volcano. So at the top of this mountain, there's ice, and there's an opening, which is very rugged, like stones that are jagged, and it creates a crater, and there's smoke and heat coming out of the top of the mountain. And the energy in the fire in the mountain is beginning to expand. It's getting a little bit hotter. We can see like the lava inside. If we were above the mountain looking down, we could see a lava field that's bubbling and getting warmer and warmer. And there's a smoke that is rising from the mountain. And as the smoke rises from the mountain, it goes up into the atmosphere above us. And the smoke begins to reveal energy things that were invisible in the air. As the smoke kind of moves through the structure of the air, we can see the form of beings that are floating or hovering. And they too have formed a ring. But these beings are made of energy. And they're hovering in this space above the mountain. And the energy of these beings begins to descend. It's almost like they're scaling down or coming down on a rope or being descended, if you will, to the earth. And one of these beings, each person standing in the human circle, behind them will find one of these energy beings. They've come down to join us, and it's like there's one per person for everybody in the meditation. And the energy beings, the light beings, raise their hands and they place one hand on the crown, the left hand on the crown of the human being, and the right hand on the heart behind the human being. And as this happens, you may feel this contact with energy in your own body. And the energy in the light being is accelerated by this. It's like they begin to become brighter and brighter in energy. They're starting to glow like a light bulb that's been turned up. And as their energy is impacted this way, you can feel an energy flowing into your body. And it begins as an energy that flows down from the crown, and it meets the energy flowing in through the heart. And it weaves its way down through your physical body like a little wave of energy that passes down your body into your legs, down to your knees and feet, and you can feel the energy flowing into the earth. And as the energy flowing through your feet enters into the earth, it's merging with the energy of the fire, the heat that's building in the volcano. And you can feel somehow there's a force of elemental nature that is supporting you at this moment in time. We're one with the earth. Our body is a gift of the earth. Our physical body comes from the earth. Our soul can be present here because of that gift of our body. And we are one with nature. And the elemental force of fire is accelerating the integration and the reception of this energy that's being given through the transmission. And as this happens, there's a gentle wind begins to form around the top of the mountain. And it's spinning around the mountain, creating a gentle breeze. And as this happens, it spins a little faster, and the wind begins to move down the mountain. It's very gentle, but there's a beautiful breeze that begins to flow around your body. You can feel the coolness from the ice and the comfort from the wind. And we recognize that as the fires of transformation are brought to us to support us in our soul's integration, we're comforted by the elements of the earth. Our body is cooled, and the wind brings the information. And around each one of us, a little eddy of wind begins to form like a spiraling vortex. And through it, you're being given energy and information that is very specific, very personal to you. And we'll just allow this energy to be delivered. And we can sense that this energy and this information is pertinent to the life we are creating. It's related to our physical presence on the planet and the life we know ourselves to be living on the planet today. It's being given to support you, to guide you, to strengthen you. And as each person is adjusted in energy this way, you can see a beautiful cone of energy that forms within the space above the mountain. It's like a dome of light, beautiful geometry of structure, like a beautiful cathedral, but made of light. And again, there's an energy that flows through this geometry, again, adjusting, attuning, delivering energy and information that's very specific to each person, individually, yet collectively. For the many faces of humanity are part of one plan. And the awakening beings of consciousness and light are working together towards a common future. even though there's a mystery as to how it appears. And then the beings of light that have joined us begin to rise. Their energy begins to lift into the space above, and they dissipate into the sky as they wind up. And the energy of the temple begins to dissolve. This beautiful structure that's formed above us begins to dissipate, vaporize into the space. And our consciousness returns into our physical body where we stand holding hands. And you can take your hands, even physically now, and bring them to your own heart. And just feel yourself present in your body. Knowing that what you received is perfect for you. The energy, the healing, the information, the consciousness, it's perfectly tailored to your own soul and your evolution. And we bow our heads to the nature before us, to the sky above us, and to each other. And so it is. And now just breathe into your body. Just let yourself kind of settle back in. You begin to wake up in your physical body. You can feel your fingers and your toes. You can wiggle them if you like. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and come on back into the space where you are.
Thank you. Thank you, really. I cannot talk, sorry. That was so profound, if I may share my experience, because first I was born in Catania, so just where there is the volcano Etna in Sicily. And for me, the volcano energy, it's something special. So my body just, it was so much vibrating that I had to hold the chair to stay still because I felt like levitating. And then I'm very acoustic, I don't know, I'm very clairaudience, and I heard the most amazing sounds that I couldn't even recognize, and I cannot even repeat because they were just sounds. And then I got a huge opening of the base chakra. That was totally unexpected because I was focusing on other two chakras, but so it was just a full connection with the planet, with this fire energy. I was feeling really hot, and it was really amazing. So thank you. I wish that the audience felt this amazing energy.
I hope so. And everybody will have an experience of their own.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the magic of the transmissions, is I never know where they're going to go. That's the first time I've ever seen anything like that. And it was very beautiful and it was so clear we were working together as a force of humanity in union with nature in a really profound way. The volcano I had never seen.
Yes,
before.
Because it's my energy. I've been for 26 years just in contact with the volcano every day of my life. So it's really my energy. For this, I was feeling so blessed. And also Mount Etna has on top of it the snow. and it's active, of course, so lava is coming out always.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah.
So it was really, really amazing. It was really my energy. So I'm very thankful.
So
I
the Sirians are
know,
working very
yeah,
well with you.
yes, I know. I know, and I remember. Also have galactic remembrances. So, so John, you have a nice gift for the audience. Could you please share what it's about? And it's
Yeah,
also
sure.
funny, nice and funny.
Absolutely, yeah. So what I like to do when I'm speaking at events is to offer a little contest. So people can enter their name in the contest, and then I'll pick 3 people randomly to receive the audio package of all the 3 Unity Field healing sessions. So the winners will get an email and with information to how to access the sessions and how to do the sessions in the audio format of the meditations. So it's a nice gift to share the work and to allow people the opportunity to experience it firsthand. So if people enter below, there's a little link. They can just enter their name and email.
Yes.
We'll take care of sending out the notification to the winners.
Okay, so good luck for
good luck.
the winner. Okay, thank you, John. It has been a real pleasure. It has been amazing the amount of information that you shared, and the end with this wonderful experience. So I'm really without words. And I'm positive that the impact on the audience will be really, really profound. So I really thank you again, and I hope that we can meet again.
Absolutely. I look forward to the end of COVID when we can meet in person.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
lovely.
so I thank you, the audience, and we will see each other in the next interview. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Valeria, and thanks to everybody in the audience too. Blessings.
Sure.